Next agenda item, which is the update on the A's. Mr. Diaz?
Yes, Jill Kimak, our Director of Community Development, will be sharing with you the latest in terms of land use issues that have occurred, because that's the focus of where we're at this point with the A's project. And both Jill and myself will be available for questions afterwards.
This is a short 15-minute presentation of what's happened lately on the A's. I just want to sort of remind the group that there's two decisions that the council is going to make on the A's. One is about the project itself from an environmental point of view, very objective, look at the analysis kind of decision that the council will be asked to make. The second is whether this is a good business decision for the city. And there's two separate analyses, and I'm only going to talk about the first one. The second one is very much related because they impact each other, but we look at it just from a mitigation point of view and a pure analysis point of view. In November of '07, this is what the A's submitted to the city. It is basically and you can't really tell from, it's a blob, what we call a blob map in planning. It has a 32,000 seat stadium, mixed use, which is in the orange upper right-hand corner, which had some parking structure for the stadium and was viewed as sort of a Santana Row theater, sort of a place to go at night. And then the lighter orange below the green stadium was higher density housing, and then closer to the bottom and the yellow to the left was more residential units, 3,150 residential units. The council looked at this, and they also added in the bright yellow an option for the A's to consider, which was to have R&D office. We started having courtesy meetings, both with, all the agencies, our neighboring cities, the water district. The A's met directly with both the Fremont Unified Board and also with staff. We also had 2 work sessions in this format to talk about the A's. Through that process, we made a number of changes because we started getting feedback both from the community and from some traffic engineers. There's been dueling traffic engineers on this project because one of the key issues has been traffic and parking. For example, we looked at the initial submittal did not have shuttles to and from BART. The A's agreed to add that. They also had in the upper right-hand corner, we call it the Fountains Business Park. They had parking there, which led to a lot of pedestrians crossing the road, which also further impacted the traffic. So when we started looking at initial higher level traffic analysis, we decided to ask the A's to take out that parking and have that only for employee parking. In addition, we asked them to put in a pedestrian overpass over 880 to allow fans to park east of 880. So we did all that. We had these courtesy meetings. The A's also met with the National Wildlife Preserve because this area is surrounded by the Don Edwards Wildlife Preserve. And then the A's were also separately from the city working with the retailers to see if there were any impacts of this traffic and parking that would impact the retailers. And from our last presentation, that also has a trickle-down effect to impacting our potential sales tax. So all of those issues have been looked at. As part of the process, we have to do a California Environmental Quality Act review, which is what we call the environmental analysis. State law requires that there's 4 alternatives as part of that analysis. One is the project, which was this submittal, and then there's a no-build alternative, and there's an off-site alternative. And so the A's looked at a off-site alternative that we wanted them to look at very objectively. we wanted them to say, look at what the preferred environmental analysis is, not whether this is the right project or not, but just from an potential environmental impact look, which is better for the environment. So this is the alternative that the A's came up with and to look at. In the right hand, the blob on the right-hand side, the pink area, is 256 acres of potential land that a stadium could land on. The reason this site was selected is because it's the crosshatch in the middle is the future location of the Warm Springs BART station. And so because traffic was such an initial issue, what they were wanting us to look at was how do we mitigate that? One of the questions from the regional agencies, and especially from BART, is why isn't it at a transit station, whether it's, you know, at a transit station or a BART station. So they looked at this site, or want us to analyze this site, and then it retains on the Pat Commons site everything that was basically there before. The school that the school board asked for is still in the plan. It also has still R&D office area. It has retail. It has the 3,150 housing units. What the A's are talking about now is to look at both of these as equal. Normally, in CEQA, we have a preferred alternative that you analyze in depth, and then you have alternatives that you analyze at a cursory view, just so you have something to compare it to. What the A's are talking about now is having two projects that we analyze completely the same from a traffic, lighting, noise, parking, neighborhood impact point of view, and to bring both of those projects to the council with all the data behind it to give the council the very tough decision of which project is supported environmentally and by the city. And at the same time, the council will be looking at it from a business point of view of which is the best business decision for the council. And I think that's the update, unless Greg wants to.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is you may recall some time ago, it's been a while, this has been back to the council, but there were a set of guiding principles that were adopted by the council to help staff approach this project from both a land use planning standpoint, but also a business standpoint, a financial standpoint. And that dialogue is ongoing, but obviously if there's a change in location physically that's going to impact not just the land use, but potentially the dialogue that revolves around business terms. But would like to, I guess, emphasize once again that the guiding principles still hold, and that this project has to be a win-win for the community, for the A's, has to be a net economic development benefit to the entire community, and one that we think will pay and will have significant benefits overall. Otherwise, as I've said before, I will not recommend this council approve the project.